What is good, y'all? This is technically my first ever posted in the bag. I wanted to do a USAM's in the bag recap. What I bagged, what I threw on the course. Had a blast. Experience was amazing. Course was fantastic. Just a lot of fun. Pushed you to every shot in the game. So this is a recap of what I actually bagged at USAM's before my transition now to Lone Star, which stay tuned for that in the bag after my next tournament when I kind of finalize everything I'm throwing there. So let's jump into it. We'll start with my putters since those are pretty basic. I did putt with inner cores. So I had 4 inner cores in the bag. I had 2 that I used as putting, one brand new one, kind of backup, one seasoned one that I am currently still putting with, a super beat up one that I would hyzer, like throw this on steep hyzer flip angles, and it would flip up. It would never fully like turn, but it would just flip up real quick, or like kind of a slow panning flip up. Amazing. Shout out to Jesse. These are in the TPE plastic, which is the baseline plastic. So that's what I used for putting and throwing. I did throw my base plastic inner cores, but I mostly threw this prototype inner core. Jesse was legit enough to let me be the first one to use the official PDGA approved inner core in a tournament, which I did last year at Colorado States. So this is the same one that I got then. It normally sits up on the wall up here because this is a disc that I would cry my eyes out if I lost, but for now it just comes out in tournament play to kind of swag on people a little bit, as this is a highly coveted and rare disc. Probably my most rare disc, truthfully. Moving on to my only other putter approach disc, if you will. Between my putters and my mids, I only have 3 molds, which is pretty sweet. So I have inner cores, and then I have a slew of zones. So I'll start with my understable zone, which is my jawbreaker. This one I got pretty early on into my disc golf career. At low elevation, it's a lot more squirrely than I thought it would be, but it was still nice to have that shot. So if you needed to throw something, say on a forehand, that was just going to kind of turn the whole way, this is what I was throwing. So great disc, jawbreaker zone. Then I have my bluey, this is what we call it. It's just a stock ESP zone. Shout out to Bryce and Connor for both previously owning this disc, and now it's mine, and they both want it back, but I will not give it to them because this is my favorite stock stamp disc that I've ever owned in my life. I would also cry if I lost this disc. Very straight zone, straight, but just gets a little fade at the end of it. Nice forehand and backhand, very consistent, just what you want in a zone. Then I have a slightly more stable zone in this Beast 6-time zone. A little puddle top, a little more stable than the ESP one, or the bluey one. This is also ESP. I leaned on this pretty often. This one I would kind of throw into some more headwinds or backhand, just approach shots. Great disc. And then the newest addition to the USAM's bag is this
Swirl, Jawbreaker, Brody, Zone OS.
That's a mouthful. This was for the 2023 USAM's Disc Golf Championships doubles match. That was a challenge against Brody. This disc is absolutely fantastic. It's a Zone OS, very overstable, very beefy, but it actually replaced 2 discs of mine. So it replaced my favorite pig up there that is now retired and sitting on the wall. So it replaced that for the base plastic touch forehand shots that you need to kind of flex out but sit soft at the basket. And it also replaced my Z Zone OS, which is just stupid overstable, but kind of those shots where you want to just throw it and know it's just going to kind of get to a knife angle and hit the ground. As the week got on, I ended up actually using this more than I thought I would, but just for those approach shots, it was just trustworthy. It's a Zone OS, and it's super stable. And then my only mid-range in the bag, shout out again to Jesse and Trash Panda, is this Dune which I think this is actually being released like this upcoming weekend, which is pretty sick. It's pretty much a slightly more stable and longer inner core. So I would throw this straight and it would just go straight and get a little fade at the end. I could throw it on Annie and it would kind of pan and finish straight, but just super trustworthy, a fantastic disc, and is still in the bag even now. Moving on to fairways. I'll start first with my 7 speeds. I threw the FD. So I had this S-Line FD, a Color Glow C-Line FD. Shout out to Connor for this one. And then a C-Line FD1. This one I primarily threw forehand. It's kind of the straight forehand shot. It's like the longer version of the zone for me. That's how I threw it. And then I pretty much threw this Color Glow C-Line one the most for those shots where you wanted to throw something longer than a mid-range, or just your goal is to get past the basket, but you didn't want to rip on a full 9-speed or get too much distance with it. So I actually found myself throwing the FD more than I thought I would for kind of just placement shots on a lot of those like par 4s, straighter to more understable FD, like kind of the hyzer flip to turning. This one, throw flat, gets a little turn, fades out, and then the FD1 is just more overstable. So, and then my 9 speeds, I am a huge fan of the Escape and the FD3. They're 2 of my favorite molds ever, and that's practically all I had here. We'll start with my Escapes. I had this Fusion Burst Escape. This one was my hyzer flip to turning Escape, or I had on hole 3 at USAMs, I had a kind of get out of jail, patent pending, throw it on some Annie, try to get this thing to glide, and got really solid 350-foot shot from a patent pending position with this. So very glidey, understable fairway driver for me. And then a slightly more stable version of it is this Biofusion Escape. It's just not as seasoned, but just a super straight flyer. Like, it was just perfect, everything I needed. And then I had the CD1, which I don't even know if I threw it at USAMs, but this is just a slightly more stable version of the Escape. I found that I wanted to have something in case there was a headwind, and I didn't want to throw the FD3 because the FD3 doesn't get as much glide as the Escape. So I added the CD1 to the bag to get that little more straight, but still have that stability at the end of it to fade. So I didn't even throw it, but it's a great disc. Loved practicing with it anyways. And then finally to my FD3s, which I had a moment of sadness. Shout out to my orange Color Glow FD3 that I lost on hole 16. Never got returned. But shout out to my boy Micah for hooking me up with this Color Glow FD3. I've got 2 sitting up on the wall right there. Those ones are retired. Very straight FD3 forehand, kind of the hyzer flip up and straight shot, and then backhand throw straight. It's just gonna go straight and get a little fade. And then I have this C-Line FD3 from the new Discmania run. This one actually replaced the Doombird 4, which the Doombird 4 is the new Horizon FD3 before Simon left Discmania. The Doombird 4 is the more stable version of the FD3 for me, so it's like kind of that trustworthy forehand overstable, it's just gonna do nothing but go left for me. And then I found this, and I actually like the plastic a little bit better. It's slightly more gummy, but still like stiff enough. So I threw this thing a ton at USAMs. It's an FD3. It's fantastic. This is one of my favorite molds ever, and it'll be interesting to see how I go about replacing it moving forward. Moving into distance drivers now. A few molds here with my distance drivers, and this actually took me a little bit of time to figure out. We'll start first with my swords. I had this Orbit sword, which here in Colorado is my kind of hyzer flip to straight or thrown straight, and it'll get a lot of turn and fade. So this was like a long distance shot for me up here in Colorado. However, I threw it like only a couple of times at USAMs, just because I didn't need something to be that understable for me at low elevation, but still fantastic sword. And then I threw this VIP sword quite a bit actually. This would be my like hyzer flip to turning shot, or my kind of big Anheuser distance driver shot to try to get some max distance with this guy. So this was, I actually threw it a lot, which was maybe a little more surprising than I expected to, but the sword, I shout out to the In the Bag podcast for sending me this one. I need to get them to sign it so I can retire it. To my workhorse for the weekend, this Color Glow C-Line DD3. If you watched any of my tournament coverage, you would see that I threw this more than probably any other driver. The toboggan is a long course, so you throw a lot of distance driver shots. I throw it flat, get a little bit of turn, but kind of get that forward pushing fade. So I really relied on this Color Glow C-Line DD3, which was a somewhat newer addition to the bag, when I realized I kind of needed something a little bit more stable than the sword just moving down in elevation. For a disc that I needed a little more stability than that Color Glow C-Line DD3, I threw the Special Blend S-Line Cloud Breaker, so the first Eagle McMahon Creator Series Cloud Breakers. This one's just a bit more stable than the DD3, so I would throw this if there was more of a headwind, specifically on hole 1. Threw it with a little more hyzer and it kind of slowly flipped up and just got a lot of fade to it. So didn't throw it too often, but when I did throw it, it was definitely a needed disc in the bag. And then stepping up a little bit more instability from that, it was this Horizon Cloud Breaker. So just beautiful disc, beautiful mold. Threw this for forehands where I needed to get a bit more turn, but didn't want it to turn over, and probably didn't throw it as often as I expected that I would, because I ended up discovering a new disc, which I have left, and I would go back and get it, but I'm too lazy. I realized in my practice round that my Rask and my Cloud Breaker were both not stable enough for the forehand thrown on Annie to get that forced flex shot. Both of these I had to throw with hyzer to get them to flip up and to turn and to fade, or to throw with a lot of hyzer just to get that pure straight fading shot. So both of these were not as overstable for my forehand as I expected them to be. So I actually picked up an ESP Venom first run that is just very overstable. It was very trustworthy to just throw hard and flat and just trust that it would go dead straight and fade very hard at the end of it. Whereas if I threw the Rask on that same line, if I threw it dead straight, it would get a lot of turn and get a lot of distance, but then would only fade out late in the flight. Whereas the Venom was just a lot more straight to a fade compared to the turn that I got out of these guys. But shout out to Michael for being on the bag, for carrying all these for me. We had his bag out there, which was a recycled bag. Shout out to Trash Panda again for a bag that said this bag was trash, which is pretty sweet. And then the last disc that I want to talk about in my bag is this awesome Trash Panda Early Run Mini. This is number 202, and this is when Jesse was kind of first getting on the scene. When I first met him, this was the one that he gave to me. This has been my tournament mini. So again, similar to this inner core right here, these two only come out during tournament time because I don't ever want to lose them, and they're both kind of, you gotta have those discs in your bag that bring you a little bit of happiness, a little bit of joy, make you feel good, get some confidence as you work through your rounds. So that is what I bagged at USAMs. I had an absolute blast. Thank you to everybody who supported me getting there at the tournament. Shout out to Sid for watching the girls while I was there, my parents for coming out, Connor for filming everything, Michael for being on the bag. It's just an absolute blast in a tournament. Wish I would have played better, but that's what golf is. It's all about trying to get better for the next one. So thanks for checking out this video. Stay tuned for some more Lone Star in the bags coming out here soon, as Mike and I finalize what we're bagging for the rest of the 2023 season. So we'll see ya.